Hey, hey.
Hey, hey, hey.
Nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
We could just postpone this, for a more exciting news cycle. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing. What do you got?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Talk about sports.
Well, I mean, legitimately, I do think this is how most people in the world, I mean, not the world necessarily, but in this country for sure feel like.
Oh, no. I think even in Iran, I think most people don't care. I mean, they don't want to care. They're occasionally forced to care. And this is, something that's never talked about in the victim states of the U.S. empire, which is a thing, including in Gaza, all of it. Most people in those places don't care one way or the other about politics or the empire or any of this, but they, unlike us, are occasionally forced to think about it and to deal with it. Most people are around the world globally, I've never seen any exception to this, are apolitical. They don't think about politics the way that we do, you and I do. They don't care about politics in their daily lives. It's rare when they do. And usually it's only when they're forced to, like when their country gets bombed or something. But yeah, most people are apolitical, which is good and bad. I don't know. I'm always torn on that. I kind of want people to be more knowledgeable, of course, about what's going on, but at the same time, I hate the politicization of daily life, even though, of course, I've been political my whole, certainly adult life, but really my whole life. Yeah, I don't know. I'm always torn on this, but I'm quite sure that most people in Tehran would rather not be even thinking about this. Quite sure.
Yeah. I was just saying that, and that this was like, for us, it's the Super Bowl. Like it's kind of like
for Pete Hegseth, it is.
Yeah, but it's the climax. It's like what we've been talking about for years might happen. It's like for a lot of people's worst case scenario, like the thing we've been trying to avoid, right? Like Iran is the linchpin that might be World War III. This has been like the analysis for, I don't know, at least 5 to 10 years geopolitically. And it seems like there is a complete commitment to all-out war against Iran. But it doesn't, and, Iran's a bigger country than Iraq, for example. But, I'm old enough to have lived through and remembered the Iraq War. And this feels nothing like that, Like for normies, there's no American flags everywhere. There's not this huge buildup. There's just, another crazy week in the news is what it feels like for us here,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been a blitzkrieg by Trump, not just against the poor people of Iran in the last 5 days, but against our psyches for more than a year. I mean, he's every week, twice a week for a year and 2 months now. There's been a major news event caused by him. Many of them have been military actions, but it's he's keeping us off balance like this, and it's hard to even remember the recent past or the medium past, and I think it's part of the strategy.
Yes,
just roll things out so fast that people don't have a chance to even get their bearings and adequately process or respond to it. And I would imagine normie Americans, the 90% who are basically not political, don't think about this stuff. There's so much coming at them, I would imagine, that they're just going to go back to studying the results of the NFL Combine. And I envy them for that. It's amazing. Occasionally I watch like ESPN or something, and they'll go hours or do a whole game and not even mention the fact that we are at war and that 6 American service members have been killed, and we just killed 160 little girls in Iran, and on and on and on.
Oh, sorry, real quick. You believe the reports from Iran that the school was bombed?
Yes,
the girls' school. Yeah.
But even if it's not true. Even if it was an Iranian defense missile and an interceptor missile, who's to blame for the kids getting killed, right? I mean, again, if Iran launched a missile into the United States and we sent up a Patriot missile to intercept it, and the Patriot missile misfired and went back down and killed 160 American school kids named, Ashley and Eli in Orange County, we would not blame ourselves. We would not blame ourselves for that, right? But yeah, I mean, even despite that, I think the Iranian missile interceptors aren't even big enough to do that much damage. They're designed to take out a missile, not to blow up an entire building and kill 160 people. But again, doesn't matter. Either way, if it was a defensive missile that misfired, then again, whose fault is that? It's a really weird argument that people are trying to make about this. Then there was the 50, I think, volleyball player women in Iran. Their gym, I think, got blown up. 50 women killed. But, the number is now 1,000 plus civilians. Killed, dead, because this war is so necessary. Yeah, a country that I put this on Twitter. I think it was 70 or 80% of Americans can't locate Iran on a map. How many of them do you think know one single thing about Iranian politics other than maybe they're Muslim? Maybe? I'm not even sure. I'll bet you a majority of Americans don't even know that. Is that an exaggeration? Most Americans don't know anything about the world or politics, and certainly not geopolitics or the history of a foreign country, even one they've been propagandized about. I think even most Americans even sort of tune out most of the propaganda. It's 5,500 miles from a U.S. border. And it's sickening. What can I say? It's been my whole life since 1965, right? Look at my life. 65 was the year that LBJ escalated the troop deployment to Vietnam, and it got to 500,000. That's when the war became a massive war. And ever since, not a year has gone by when my country, acting in my name, has killed many people, sometimes thousands of people, for what they say is either democracy, freedom, to eliminate a threat to the United States. But it's always, always, always been just for one thing, which has been the maintenance and expansion of American control over the world, otherwise known as the American Empire. It's just goes all the way back to the 1770s when the founding fathers were talking about making a new Rome, replacing Britain as the great empire of the world. Every president, almost every senator since has followed that. Even Donald Trump, who has simply modified that script. And I wrote an extensive piece on my Substack about this, and I strongly recommend people read that, because I do think still it lays out exactly what Trump is intellectually on foreign policy and on the American empire. It's not an eradication, not an ending of the American empire. It's just a reconfiguration of it and a retrenchment of it to the Western Hemisphere, and then allowing, and this was laid out in his national, what's it called, security strategy document of December of last year, and elsewhere, others have shown this, to use proxies, partners, allies, whatever you want to call it, in regions outside the Western Hemisphere to maintain control on behalf of the United States. And so the idea is to find somebody in Europe, whether some NATO member or Orban in Hungary, or eventually maybe Russia, whatever, somebody in Europe, hopefully NATO, if they will get cowed into doing this, but to keep our adversaries, however we might define them, at bay, to contain them, maybe roll them back in Europe. And in the Middle East, the idea pretty clearly, and this is in the National Security Strategy document. People can see it. Israel, the idea about Israel is not that we serve Israel's interests, which, by the way, we're going to talk about this.
Are you talking about the narrative that this is a war for Israel?
The narrative that has taken hold of the minds of damn near everybody I know who calls themselves anti-war or anti-empire on the left and the libertarian right. Like damn near the entire anti-war movement has bought into this. I was going to say crazy. I don't like using crazy. I don't like using stupid either, but stupid, really stupid. And frankly, I think there's just some kind of anti-Semitism that can explain this latching on to that analysis because it's so dumb and wrong. Anyway, Israel would keep our adversaries at bay in the Middle East, and in Asia, it's Japan. Maybe South Korea, but mostly Japan would do that for us as well. But we're not going to have the idea behind the Trump doctrine is that we will not have boots on the ground in those places. We will not have permanent deployments, no occupations, all that stuff in those places. And guess what? So far, more or less true to his word on that. With the Iran war currently, Hegseth has said a couple little things, and I guess Trump said something about maybe there might be a need for a minimal force to retrieve casualties, perhaps. I actually believe them. They really don't want to put boots on the ground in any sort of extended way there or anywhere else. They know that's truly what will destroy their base and eliminate any chance of winning any election. But that's the doctrine. This is the new empire, according to Donald Trump. It is very similar to the old empire, except for one crucial difference. Two differences. One is regional, geographical. It'll be limited in terms of direct control to the Western Hemisphere. And also, and here's the biggest difference, it will no longer be moralistic, evangelical. It will no longer be about extending American values and principles and freedom and democracy to the rest of the world. It'll simply be about American national interest and American power and strength and primacy in a very naked way. I call it the naked empire.
Yeah.
So this makes sense.
You can see that in the propaganda. You can really see that in the propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what do you think? So am I wrong? Am I exaggerating that? I can't think of anybody other than Michael Tracy and me and Brian Berletic of the New Atlas. Maybe the Duran guys are on this, but I don't think so, even with them. Other than us three on the anti-war side of the world.
Well, on the anti-war side, yeah.
Are saying, everybody is, other than the three of us, everybody I've seen, this is again, lefties and libertarians, everybody who's anti-war, all my people, all of them are saying, this is a war for Israel. This is a war for the Epstein class.
Yeah.
This is a war for pedophiles, including, by the way, the Iranian government itself, which is now in its social media is calling America the pedophile nation and saying that America is bombing the children and women and civilians of Iran to protect pedophiles. I mean,
real quick, that's why I brought some doubt to the girls' story. The girls' school story is that, the first casualty of war is the truth. And I've seen so many AI videos. I've seen so much like naked propaganda in the past, 5 days that always comes out. And there's always atrocity propaganda stories, and a girls' school in specifically seems like something targeted to pull at the strings and undermine the United States justification for this operation. And if we're going by a standard that you've kind of set before, that, the only source for this is the Iranian government, that this happened at this point. It's being repeated. I'm like reading all the other articles, but they all cite the Iranian government. Now it may have happened, just like all the activists who said that 35,000 people were shot in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure,
You know,
like the Gaza Health Ministry.
exactly. It's an unknown is what I'm saying.
It's just that the Gaza Health Ministry, it's just been determined by the IDF itself, has been basically accurate about its numbers, as it was previously in every single major conflict. And Norman Finkelstein showed this in one of his books, in which he showed that the IDF, or Israel, after every one of these conflicts, came to agree with the Hamas Gaza Health Ministry numbers. And this is another case of that. But it's right. So, but of course, yes, the original and really only source of the numbers or the event itself, yes, is the Iranian government. However, and there's some big howevers, that was on Saturday. It is now Wednesday, and Pete Hegseth was asked today, so 4 or 5 days into this, or 5 days after that, about that specifically, and asked by a reporter, said, was the United States responsible for that? And he said, we are investigating. We are investigating, which, yeah. And I've seen Trump not address this. I've seen nobody in the administration address this. I've seen no major surrogate senator, the Republican senators who do the lead. None of them address it, deny it, counter it, claim something else. The only thing I've seen is the Zionist bot army on Twitter claiming it was an Iranian missile, self-defense missile, and they showed and their whole evidence for this was some picture of a chemtrail from a missile going up and down, and they said this is from there. And then actually Tal Hagen, who I know a little bit, who's an Israeli sort of what's it called, open intelligence source analyst, just totally debunked it and showed that picture was from 1,300 kilometers away from the school. So it's
okay.
I mean, if I had to bet,
again, this is something I saw in the fog of war. I have seen, civilian graves since then, for sure.
Well, and then also, and especially in the last 2 days, especially today, I think. But have you seen the videos of Tehran, the bombing? I mean, it's vast. It's extensive. It's appears to be central Tehran, and it is, I don't know, but just like smoke plume after smoke plume after smoke plume after explosion, fires reaching into the sky. And then lots and lots of reports, and no one's denying this. I've seen no one counter this. More than 1,000 civilians dead already. So yeah, I have every reason to believe that the reports about the 165 girls killed in that school are correct. We also know that, we know that it's not, the U.S. is very good at making accidental kills like that, all through the Iraq and Afghanistan wars and other wars, very famously. It's true for a lot of reasons, mostly because the United States has wanted to maintain its reputation as the good empire, that the United States has refrained usually from targeting civilians. That has been not the U.S. policy. It's actually been counter to the U.S. policy. Has the United States killed millions of civilians in the last 100 years? Yes, but that was never intentional. Unlike someone like Churchill, who in his war plans stated, we are going to kill as many German civilians as possible in the hopes that they will bring about a regime change. It was the exact same strategy, by the way, that's being touted now by the Americans with Iran. We'll kill all the German civilians, and then they'll rise up against Hitler and overthrow him and bring in a new era of pro-American, pro-British democracy in Germany, whatever. Same argument. Of course, it worked exactly the opposite, which is that Hitler's popularity rose among the German people, which it was very low. Most German people had zero interest in Hitler or were anti-Hitler until Churchill launched the bombing campaign, and he did that before Germany launched its bombing campaign against Britain. Anyway, so the German people rallied around Hitler, as seems to be the case in Iran right now. They are not there, and I've seen zero evidence of anybody organizing in any way to take power, as a rebel or revolutionary group. Zero, none, no evidence whatsoever of that happening. Anyway, so the analysis of this war that is
Operation Epstein Fury,
damn near ubiquitous in the anti-war movement, whatever you want to call it. And again, I'm talking about socialists and libertarians,
well, and liberals and
liberals.
Yeah. The entire Democratic Party.
Is that Israel forced Trump to do this, or Trump is beholden to Israel, and the Epstein class is behind this because they're the ones who truly pull the strings. And we've seen no evidence of that. But this is, I've grown increasingly annoyed by this, and I'm actually right now fully not enraged, but pretty angry about it. And because these are the people who I'm down with, and these are the people who have the right position on the most important issues in the world in general. It's just so stupid and wrong, and basically has kind of a little of a Jew hatred paranoia underneath it. God, the United States of America and Iran, you really think it has needed Israel to persuade it to be antagonistic to the mullahs of Iran? 1953, everybody, was the beginning. That was the overthrow, when the United States declared very directly and materially that we will not allow people who are not sympathetic to us to control that oil region. Yes, the oil is crucial. Yes, this would not be happening if there weren't lots of oil underneath Iran. Yes, it's true. The United States said in 1953, we are going to make sure, to the best of our ability, that people sympathetic to us and our ally in Great Britain, they didn't care about Israel at that point. In Great Britain, they did, will be in power in Iran. We will make sure that we will have friends in leadership in this place because of the oil there and the size of it generally and its strategic location. 1979. Yes, the Islamic movement, which had been tortured and murdered in the Shah's prisons under direction from the CIA. From 1953 to 1979, they invented modern torture techniques. The CIA did, taught them to the Savak, the Shah's secret police, and they used them on the people who ended up taking power in 1979. Electrocuting genitals, I think I've mentioned this before, was their special trick. That was their great innovation in torture techniques. What are the clamps called? The little electrical clamps, alligator clips. You attach them to a guy's nuts. You run a shock through there, an electrical shock through there. He will tell you things that you need to know. And that's what they did. And they executed many of them and kept many of them in dungeons. And so by 1979, was it any wonder that it was extremely popular in Iran? The overthrow of the Shah. That revolution, and by the way, I've heard Zionists and neocons admit this, that was a popular revolution. In general, popular. What happened the very next year? The United States began sending arms and money and intelligence and advisors to a guy named Saddam Hussein. 1980, the Iraq-Iran War, which was instigated, really begun by the United States and the CIA. We encouraged Saddam, and we said, and we followed up on this, that we will fund you and arm you and help you with intelligence if you go to war with the mullahs next door. Iraq and Iran share a gigantic long border. So Iraq invaded with massive US help Iran, in part to overthrow the Iranian regime when it was still in the cradle. That was the beginning of the war on Iran. What happened also that year? Same year, the United States imposed massive, crippling devastating sanctions on Iran, which denied things like medicine. And there have been many, many studies showing that thousands and thousands and thousands of Iranians have died in the last 46 years because of lack of access to medicine denied to them by US and British sanctions. So if you want to tell me that that's because of Israel, that began in 1980. But it really began in 1953 when the US, as I said, declared that, oh no, this is a place we are going to make sure we control by any means necessary. But from 1979 since till today, there has been an active kinetic war, because sanctions are an act of war. But also arming an enemy that invades your country and then wages an 8-year war. And by the way, the Iran-Iraq war from 1980 to 1988, one of the worst ever. Unbelievable. Saddam used chemical weapons against Iranian conscripts in the desert. And how did he find them? How did he know where to shoot those chemical-laced warheads? The CIA gave him intelligence. Satellite imagery of the Iranian front line. Said, here, shoot here. Send the mustard gas and the sarin gas and the nerve gas into these trenches over here. You'll kill a bunch of 19-year-old Iranian guys who were conscripted into the army. That was the United States waging a war through a proxy known as Saddam Hussein against Iran in the 1980s, while sanctions are going on to cripple the country, which it amazingly did not. Severely hampered it, and the poverty you will see in Iran is, yes, in large measure due to 46 years of massive U.S. Western sanctions against that country. Most of the countries of the world cannot trade with Iran. Cannot trade. Most of the countries of the world are not allowed by force of the United States Navy. Your ship will get blown out of the water if you try to trade with Iran. That's what's been going on. So, and the reason, why is it that the United States has been at war with Iran since 1979? Two reasons. One is the oil there. Yes, as I said, but that's really since 1953. One is the oil, but the major reason, I would say, actually, maybe more importantly, is that since 1979, the Islamic Republic of Iran has been the only consistent force against both the U.S. presence in the Middle East and the Jewish ethno-state in Palestine. The only government, the only people or organization or state anywhere in the Middle East with any kind of military, any power at all, the only one that has consistently opposed the U.S. empire and the Jewish ethno-state. So again, I ask everybody listening, and I said this on Twitter, knowing that that's been, and that's true, that's been Iranian foreign policy since 1979, and that is why the United States and Israel are attacking it. Whose side are you on, Michael Weimer?
USA.
Why is that? You not want because I'm an American. But don't you want the U.S. out of the Middle East?
I think this is the way to get the U.S. out of the Middle East, because like NATO exists in opposition to Russia. You know, if Russia is no longer a threat to NATO, then there's no reason for NATO to exist. I think if the Iranian threat doesn't exist anymore, then there's no excuse to not pull back. You know, if we actually topple the regime and get a completely U.S. sympathetic, puppet state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, puppet state. Mm-hmm. Basically, what it looks like Trump is doing is that he's murdering everybody in charge until somebody is left holding the bag and will obey Trump unless they get murdered. Which is kind of what happened in Venezuela. Like, Delcy Rodriguez is basically doing everything Trump tells her to do under threat of being murdered, pretty much. Like, he said, you'll get worse than Maduro.
So how does this remove the U.S. from the Middle East?
So like when Iran attacked all of its neighboring countries that, yes, had U.S. military bases in it, you've got the entire world sort of rallying against Iran. Like Russia and China is abandoning them, and Saudi, Qatar, even, UAE.
Wait, Russia and China are not abandoning Iran.
It kind of looks like it.
Where do you see that?
They're not supplying weapons like beyond anything that they're doing currently. Like they said, they're not providing defense.
I don't know what news report that is that you saw. No, the relationship has gotten tighter in the last 5 days, but in the last 2 years too, definitely. And that's so this. And by the way, this leads into the second part of my argument about why the Israel-centric, Epstein-centric analysis is so fucking stupid. So in 1997, Zbigniew Brzezinski published The Grand Chessboard. We have a course on it at Unregistered Academy, in which he said that the problem in Eurasia, first of all, the whole argument of that book, and Brzezinski was the major foreign policy intellectual at that time, the major thesis of that book is that Eurasia, the European Asian landmass, is crucial to control, that any empire, any global empire, any empire with global aspirations must control Eurasia. And he said the major threat going forward to United States control over Eurasia is a potential alliance between, and he named them 3 countries, Russia, China, and Iran. And in fact, that's what's been happening. So BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, but then Iran joined it as well, and China. And the trade between the 3, or among the 3, oil transfers from Iran to China, various transfers of weaponry and technology from Russia to Iran, and some from China as well. But a lot of the weaponry in Iran is from Russia, and a lot of Iran's economy comes from its trade in oil, mostly with China. And that's only been getting closer and closer, those ties. And then rhetorically, Russia's been so
okay. Yeah.
So Russia's been kind of, they're always kind of trying to play all sides. So they've been less bellicose in their rhetoric. But China, Xi Jinping, since Gaza, especially, since October 7th, especially, the CCP and Xi have been super anti-Zionist and have been helping very clearly Iran with intelligence, satellite intelligence, showing them exactly where all these bases are, these U.S. bases are, and where to hit them, and where the aircraft hangars are, and where the ships are docked, and publishing videos about it. No, they are forcing the very alliance that Brzezinski feared the most to happen. So I don't know, like, what you saw.
I'm seeing Iran collapse, and I'm not seeing like a hard alliance. Like I'm not seeing.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, you mean they're not.
I'm not seeing the World War III tripwire go off to where Russia and China join in against the West.
I think
China
has 2 aircraft carriers, either 1 or 2. I think it is. So in other words, you're not seeing a Chinese aircraft carrier enter the Persian Gulf.
Yeah, and I'm seeing them diplomatically say, let's end this as quick as possible. Like, let's talk this out. They're not saying, you attacked our ally, we're coming to your defense. They're saying, let's talk this out. Let's end this as soon as possible.
Oh, but the alliance is there.
The alliance is there, but what's going to be left of Iran?
Oh, sure. Obviously, the United States could quite literally level the entire country, do to it what we did to Japan in 1944 and 1945. Like literally flatten Tehran the way that the United States flattened Tokyo. So there was not a single structure more than 3 feet high in Tokyo. and as of the end of 1945. Sure, and do it even more easily now, of course, because we have B-2 bombers that Pete Hegseth loves to talk about. Yeah, who knows? I mean, and God knows if Israel had its way, and I'm sure the U.S. is restraining them, or at least trying to restrain them. But yeah, again, Michael, like I don't see any challenge to that basic thesis that this is driving and creating an alliance among those three countries that is going to make it even more difficult.
It's accelerating that alliance
for the United States to control Eurasia.
It's accelerating that alliance, but I don't see the alliance being particularly strong. I don't see it. I saw it stronger 2 or 3 years ago, but now I feel like they're sort of panicking and trying to get as close together as possible. And I've seen like the alliance is not materializing in terms of an alternative to the US dollar. It's not materializing in terms of like an actual military alliance. And it seems like behind the 8 ball, it seems too little too late is what I see this alliance as.
So you're going to love this as a traditionalist.
Mm-hmm.
There really is a difference in cultures and among the three countries. And one of the main differences, especially between the US and China, especially, although it's even true with Russia, Chinese culture has a very long memory and a lot of patience that Americans simply don't have, in large part because capitalist penetration didn't really happen in China until 20 years ago. They haven't really been a capitalist country, capitalist society until 20 years ago. And so the vast majority of Chinese people don't have that anxiety, that moving forward constantly, that, shark-like mentality of I must be moving forward and consuming and producing and conquering every minute or I'll die mentality, which Americans have had. And they talk this way. And with foreign policy, what is the 100 years of shame? The era of colonial domination of China. It was a long time ago, and it was 100 years, and they still talk about that. Still a major part of their rhetoric and discourse. They have patience, and they've been playing a long game, the Chinese in particular. The Belt and Road Initiative, which has been going on for 20 years now. What is it? More than a decade. Is this really brilliant, slow, incremental, non-dramatic, non-kinetic, non-military, non-violent means of expanding their influence and power across a huge chunk of the world. They're planning for this and they are ready for this. And I think the Iranians also, of course, certainly the government is very traditional culture that sees the long game. The long game is this. Here's the long game, but this is the short game. Actually, This could be a matter of weeks. So listen.
Yeah.
So Iran has something like 10,000 missiles, something like that. It's roughly 10,000. The United States of America currently has, I checked today, in its arsenal, roughly 3,000 to 4,000 missile interceptors. By the way, each one costing about $1 million. So it's the Patriots. It's the terribly named THAAD system, which has 2 A's, everybody, not 1 A. Resent the fuck out of them for naming it that. But and another system I'm forgetting. Anyway, it's about 3,000 to 4,000 total. How many have we shot in the last 5 days? They're not telling us, but it's obviously in the hundreds. It's got to be in the hundreds. Now, Israel has its own arsenal, and of course, they don't tell anybody how many they have because everything's secret in Israel, but it ain't infinite. And Iran has been building missiles for 20 years. For 20 years. It's been building missiles. It's also been building underground bunkers to house those missiles in and to shoot them from, which you can't even see from an aircraft flying overhead because they're underneath the desert. And the lid pops open and the missile shoots out of the sand. They can keep firing these missiles for quite a while. I don't know if we can intercept them for much longer. And also, what happens at the end of this war, let's say it does go for 2 weeks or 6 weeks, as Hegseth is suggesting. How many missile interceptors will we have left at the end of that to actually defend ourselves, or for that matter, the US bases in the Middle East, or Israel, or all the ships that are right off the coast of Iran? I think that they are planning for a war of attrition. Those long-term patient cultures of Iran and China's in there, and so is Russia. I'm sure they are just doing this to reduce the American empire's ability to fight back and defend itself.
Yeah.
In its forward outposts. And I think that's not a bad strategy.
Yeah, but to me, that's a horrible outcome that I don't want to have happen.
Why?
Because then we're defenseless.
Then we leave. Then we turn the aircraft carrier around and send it back to where it should be, which is in Virginia or San Diego, and it should stay there forever. That's what'll happen.
Again, I think the plan is to do that after you win the war.
But why would you rather that than have us just leave now because it's too dangerous?
Well, Blinken did say this, and he was analyzing this, that at this point, Trump could do what he did basically last year and declare victory and say, we've killed the leadership, we've killed all these people, we've destroyed their navy, we've destroyed their entire means to threaten anybody in the region. We win. The future of Iran is now up to Iran. That might happen, and that's on the table, and Trump could do that at any time. That's a possibility. I'm not 100%, advocating for it. This is all above my pay grade. I just trust the plan. But yeah.
Whose pay grade is it not above? Like, who is it that really knows what's going on here?
Hegseth and Trump.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Point. Yeah.
I mean, they know what's going on.
Yeah.
But do they have the right analysis of what's going on?
I mean, they're the only ones who really know. But
although they don't even really know. They don't know what's going on in Iran. They know something about what's going on in Iran.
Yeah.
But
well, that's the thing. That's the other thing. Yeah. It is that this could be the worst risk that Trump has ever made. That Trump is a reckless person who likes to take risks, that he's bankrupted companies in the past. But the United States isn't a company. This is a country. You can only do this once. You can only fail once. Iran has been planning for this for 45 years. They're ready. They can do the war of attrition. Totally possible that happens. Yeah. And that would be horrible. And that would be awful. Yes.
Why?
If Iran wins the war of attrition, why would that be awful?
Yeah.
It would mean dead Americans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dead Americans that you don't know versus dead Iranians you don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have any preference there, except they're all human beings. I just want the lowest number possible. And the lowest number will be brought about by sending aircraft carriers back to the Virginia and San Diego and closing every one of those smoking military bases in the Middle East. The only way those military bases are going to get removed from the Middle East, which every single one of them should be, and this should have been, I don't know why the anti-war movement hasn't made this their campaign for the last 50 years. Every single one of those military bases in the Middle East, for that matter, around the world, but certainly the ones in the Middle East, every single one of them should be shut down, closed, and everybody should be redeployed back to the States.
Well,
and the only way that's going to happen, and that's, by the way, now every anti-war movement, even the person, even though I don't say this enough, but they all agree with me on that. The only way that's going to happen is by what Iran is doing. And people are like, why is Iran shooting missiles into Dubai and Bahrain? And because there's gigantic US military bases in those countries that have been used in the attacks against Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and you name it. That's why. Gigantic. The biggest military base in the Middle East is in Al Udeid base in Qatar. But all of them are huge. The whole Fifth Fleet is in Bahrain, which, by the way, is totally in smoking ruins now, and God bless that. I don't think a single service member died either, by the way, at the Fifth Fleet base in Bahrain. I think they'd all been evacuated. That shit is toast. They took out the giant radar system on the first day, and ever since, they've just been raining missiles into that fucking thing. God bless that, every bit of it. Al Udeid should be smoking ruins as well. I want, and they probably will, this is part of the reason I'm comfortable saying this, I'm sure the U.S. has taken every precaution and evacuated people, and I want Iran's missiles to just rain down on every one of those bases, assuming they're empty, which I think they are. Yeah. And then at the end of this catastrophe, Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, and then the next president, who will probably be a Democrat, Gavin Newsom, will come along and say, we need to rebuild those bases. And it will force a conversation, finally, a national conversation about whether we need to have those bases, whether we should have those bases. Why should we be spending $1 billion per year on each of them just to keep them going? $10 million to build them, and then $1 million each, billion per year on each to maintain them. Not to mention all the service members, the American soldiers and sailors who have died fighting out of those bases for the last 50 years. Probably 10,000, something like that. Their deployment went through those bases. Every one of them, all the dead service members in the Middle East, they went through those bases to get there, to get killed. They've cost us hundreds of billions of dollars and thousands of dead Americans for nothing other than, as I said, the maintenance and expansion of the U.S. empire, which no one even knows about, no one benefits from. Yeah, I'm on the side of Iran in this war. As should you.
Okay. Yeah,
in this war, of course.
No.
In this war.
I don't see how the world is better by handing power back to the Democrats and then starting over.
But that's what Trump's doing right now. He's handing.
That's not what's happening.
Again, you think this is helping him electorally?
I think the midterms are in 6 months, and I think killing Khamenei, I think 6 months is an eternity for a republic that has the memory of a goldfish, and that anything could happen. And that if this gets wrapped up in 6 weeks, and there's a puppet state in Iran, and now Trump can say, "I've got the board of peace. Everybody's rallied to their own defense. Israel rallied to their own defense. There are no adversaries in the Middle East anymore. The reason for the United States being there is gone. Everybody else now has an obligation to pay for their own defense, just like what he's trying to do with NATO. Long-term peace established, huge victory, a long-term adversary of the United States. Anybody who remembers the hostage crisis, a lot of people, they don't think in terms of the Shah torture. They don't think in terms of that. They think in terms of, we were embarrassed that hundreds of Americans were held hostage for a long time. That's all they think about.
Yeah, I know. But should they think about it that way?
I'm not faulting them for that. It's more complicated, but How
about arming and funding Saddam Hussein for 8 years as he fought a war?
Not a fan of that. Awful.
No, but
awful.
Would it be good for Americans to know that?
Totally.
Better for them to incorporate that into their analysis of the whole situation. The sanctions regime, like denying cancer medication, which the United States has done for 46 years to the United States, to Iran. It'd be good for also Americans to know that. Not to mention 1953 and the overthrow of the democratically elected president Mossadegh, which began the whole thing. Not to mention the fact that the fucking thing is 5,000 miles from anybody in America, and what do we care anyway? Why are we killing these people and sanctioning them and sending armies into war against them? And
Well,
And then I haven't even mentioned what Israel's done to Iran. With some of the assistance, not entirely, of the United States. Don't we want to factor all that into our thinking about this?
I think that should be factored in, but that's a mess that's been inherited, and how do you deal with that? And at the end of the day, I do think the mullahs and Khomeini, are awful radical people who, if they could, would do a lot of damage. And it's awful for the United States for propping up
damage to whom? There's only two entities.
Yeah.
Two entities, which is
Israel,
not the United Israel. Yes. Israel in toto. Yes. Israel, Zionism. Yes. In danger. Yes. The other enemy target is only Americans in the Middle East. Like only the colonizers, only imperialists, only the soldiers who are occupying the land. Much of it holy land for Muslims. Much of it holy land. That's it. They've never launched any, have you noticed? Not a single attack on any American who's inside of America. None. Zero. Not a one. Yeah, they killed Marines in Beirut. Why were the Marines in Beirut? Yeah, they killed a bunch of American soldiers in Iraq. Why were the American soldiers in Iraq? On the border with Iran. Why did they kill some American soldiers in Afghanistan? What were the soldiers doing in Afghanistan? On the other border with Iran. Afghanistan, Iraq, U.S. soldiers occupying those two countries for 2 decades, sandwiching Iran with hundreds of thousands of American soldiers and tanks and fighter planes and bombers and missiles. Can you imagine if Russia or China invaded Canada and Mexico simultaneously? That's where Iran is, everybody. That's where Iran is. I hope they win. Quickly and decisively. This war is happening one way or the other, and people will die. So I'm definitely taking the side of Iran in this war. Not in anything else. Not in anything else. I don't agree or disagree with them on anything, meaning the government, the state, on anything else but this. And this is the most important issue in the world.
That means to victory will be death. It's gonna, that's a war of attrition scenario in which, U.S. military bases get bombed, all the countries bordering Iran get bombed, Iran itself gets bombed, thousands of civilian deaths, horrible, awful war of attrition.
That's what's happening now.
Yeah. But okay. I'm saying an Iranian victory would be that, but prolonged.
No. Why would do you not?
The United States is going to give up now.
You don't think?
They're going to exhaust their resources and they're going to try to win this. I think they're going to try to. I don't think the United States is going to try to give up. Is going to give up.
Do you think they will be able to get the funding from Congress and through many public debates to rebuild all those bases?
Well,
that's the question.
Well, that's after a lot of destruction. That's far in the future. Right now, today, they failed to have a war powers authorization thing restricting Trump. So the Senate, Fetterman joined the Republicans
by 4 votes.
Yeah,
it was close,
but it was
52 to 48.
Yeah, entirely partisan, but yeah.
No, well, right.
Rand Paul and John Fetterman were the only people, but
it switched. Yeah, right. But very close. Very close. So the Democratic Party Now, the leadership is all a bunch of opportunistic hacks, of course, including especially Gavin Newsom, who was it yesterday or today? Last night, I think it was, started talking about Israel as an apartheid state and we need to reconsider funding Israel. And it's like, whoa, because he's never been like that before. That's not because Gavin Newsom, got religion overnight. It's because he sees that the whole frickin' Democratic Party, like 90+% of it, is essentially anti-Israel now. And you cannot win the primary. You can't get, the nomination if you don't have some at least fairly critical take on Israel. And if I would imagine we'll see in 3 years, 2.5 years, whether I think this is going to be true. I think it's going to be, I think especially in 2.5 years, I think it will be a requirement for Democrats, and I think even for a lot of Republicans, to call for ending funding of Israel to win. I know that's true for Democrats. That seems obvious to me, but I think even probably maybe even half of Republican candidates by the next presidential election will be calling for ending or reducing support for Israel. That seems clear. We already see a lot of candidates doing that, Republican and Democrat, even for the midterms coming up. That's happening already. But man, and more servicemen are going to die. More Americans are going to die. 6 is just the beginning. I mean, you've seen the videos. They are fucking up those bases and a bunch of other places all around the Gulf that have a lot of American servicemen in them. I mean, direct hits, not to mention on Israel. By the way, Israel is suppressing all the news of this as much as they can. So all
Tel Aviv is getting
scattered videos. But compared to last June, this looks heavy. I mean, it looks like not just a building or two, but entire neighborhoods that are pretty much leveled. I mean, cars like completely thrown, giant craters in multiple places in Tel Aviv and then Jerusalem too. And then all around, because the IDF has military bases like scattered all around Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, in the desert, whatever. There's towns next to each one of them. And those places are getting blasted. And it continues. And again, as I said, everybody agrees that Tehran has something like 1,000 missiles or 10,000 missiles, something around that number. And there's only about 4,000 to 5,000 interceptors between Israel and the United States. Each interceptor costs about $1 million. The Iranian missiles and Shahed drones cost a tiny fraction of that. The Shahed drones cost I think in the thousands per. And Hegseth and others have been saying they're the real problem, the Shahed drones. They're having a really hard time shooting them down. So,
well, also Macron in France just deployed an aircraft carrier as a defensive position. It seems like NATO is going to be back in the U.S. if it comes to that in some way. So yeah. And Azerbaijan is deploying troops to the border. Again, to me it looks like Iran's on their own. They've got a lot, but it seems like they're on their own. It seems like they're not getting direct support from Russia or China.
Well, they're on their own except for the roughly 150 Shia Muslims who live outside of Iran. And that's who's storming the embassies in every the U.S. embassies,
Pakistan
in every Middle Eastern country, pretty much. He was their supreme leader. I mean, he wasn't just a political leader. He was, I think, considered the principal spiritual leader of Shia. And they're not happy, to say the least. So the blowback has just begun. When they start storming our embassies, what has usually happened as a result? I mean, it doesn't end there. And so you suggesting that this will all be wrapped up by November, that seems nearly impossible.
That's, well, for Americans, but yeah.
It won't be. There's no way. I mean, come on. By the way, Gaza's not even finished.
Mhm.
I mean, 600, I think, Palestinians have been killed since the ceasefire in Gaza. They're bombing and shooting all the damn time. It's not over at all. Hamas is very much alive and still fighting. There's videos every week being released by Hamas, the Al-Qassam brigades of them shooting the fuck out of some IDF tank or soldier or something. They're still there. They're still there. And so that's not even, it's not even a ceasefire. Nothing's changed fundamentally in Gaza even, which is the original source of most of this, or a lot of this. That's not resolved. Syria is, as we know, currently controlled by an ex-Al-Qaeda leader and is completely fractious as a society and has multiple warring armed factions all over it. That's not stabilizing in the slightest. All of Shia Islam is on fire right now, which is a giant chunk of the whole Middle East population. And then all these Gulf countries that have these US bases, we see rioting in the streets against who? Against the governments in those countries. In Bahrain, they're throwing Molotov cocktails at the cops in the streets. And how will those countries' governments deal with this? Well, come to Dubai and enjoy a life of luxury and peace and security, except that occasionally some missile might hit your hotel. The economy of those countries seems, I would think, is taking a massive hit, maybe even a lethal hit. Right now, who's going to want to go hang out in Dubai right now? Or Doha? Or any of those places now? And if you're a naval planner or in the Joint Chiefs of Staff planning out base deployments and construction, are you going to be just as gung-ho about rebuilding bases in the Gulf states right now, which are right across the water? You can literally see Iran from the Gulf states. You can see it. It's right there with their thousands and thousands of missiles that they now have proved can fuck you up at any moment. Given the fact that Israel has been on a complete warpath for years and the United States has been on a warpath for decades or centuries. Yeah, I think this is really bad for the American empire. I think this is a huge loss for the American empire. Even if they do get some, this is not going to happen, but even if they did get some puppet regime in Tehran to do its bidding, what do you think would happen to that puppet regime? Either it would fade away and die, or it'd be overthrown in a revolution. Because it has no base of popular support. There's no infrastructure. There are no political parties, opposition movements, groups, nothing. Nothing. There are some outside of Iran, and the CIA and Pete Hegseth and others are now saying they are currently arming Kurdish and other ethnic groups outside of Iran that have been hostile to the regime. And, we tried that. We have tried that in many places. Syria, Iraq. And how did that go? Catastrophe upon catastrophe. It's just kind of amazing that we're still having these arguments, that we're still having to say these things. After how many wars fought pretty much just like this with the same premises? Not since 1945, guys, since 1898. Since 1898, since the invasions of Cuba and the Philippines. It's been the same thing. We're going to go there. We're going to help the people. We're going to lift them up. We're going to have to kill a whole bunch of them in the process, but it'll be better for for America, be better for those people in those places, and better for the world. And what did we get? We got more than a century of fighting and dying, and then ultimately a revolution in Cuba, communist revolution in Cuba, and a Philippines that has been, a giant mix of problems and benefits for the United States, with currently an active and armed Islamic revolutionary group in it that control an entire island in the Philippines, Mindanao. God bless America. I do love this country, but man, the state and the official ideology of the state of the United States, horrific, disgusting, and should be renounced. We need to love America because, my God, I love this place. I love this country in so many ways. But the damn state is grotesque.
Do you see the thing about insurance in the Strait of Hormuz?
No.
Yeah. So the British insurance companies that insure all the ships that go through the Strait of Hormuz sort of backed out and said, we're not going to insure you if you're going through there. Yeah, Iran has tried to close it, but hasn't necessarily. But the United.
What do you mean? What's the evidence they haven't? They announced they're allowing Chinese. They just announced, and here's another counter to your point earlier. They just announced that they will allow Chinese ships to come into through the strait. But no, I've seen no evidence that other ships are being allowed in.
Well, Trump is saying that he's going to use the military, the Navy, the finance corporation to insure these ships. So he's banking on the Strait of Hormuz being open.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not open. You can look at satellite images. There's no ships in there. It's dead. It's shut down.
Yeah.
And Maersk, which is the second largest shipping company in the world, just canceled all of its orders from all of the Gulf states. It will not be picking up or delivering anything to any of the Gulf states going forward now. 20% of the world's oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil is now being stopped. And that oil goes to mostly India, China, some to Japan, some to Southeast Asia, and a big chunk to Western Europe. Meaning a vast swath of the global economy. No, the United States doesn't get any oil from there at all. But if the entire global economy, including Western Europe and Eastern Asia, suffer a crisis, which they almost certainly will if this continues, because they would just have to, it will affect us economically, and prices will certainly go up here too. It's just a catastrophe for the United States and the dead girls and the dead civilians in Iran. Those are the losers. But the anti-US alliance, the anti-US, anti-Israel alliance is winning. And I'm pretty sure will basically win the war on net. The US empire is definitely going down with this one.
I don't know. I'm seeing the U.S. winning this one. I just see it.
What's winning? What is winning?
I mean, Khomeini's dead.
Sure. His son is now the Ayatollah.
Okay.
And
we'll see how long that lasts.
He was also 86.
Yeah.
So he wasn't going to be around for much long anyway.
Yeah.
What's winning?
We'll see when the dust settles on all this.
Okay.
Yeah.
You sounded like the Secretary of Defense right then. Well, we're investigating.
Yeah. No, it's just
we'll see.
Yeah. I don't see Iran surviving this. I don't see the mullahs surviving this. I don't see. I mean, unless this war of attrition thing happens that you say, which is entirely possible that they have the resources and that happens. But another analysis thing, all the resources are being pulled out of Ukraine. So it looks like Putin can advance farther, and it looks like Putin might accept some terms, and that might get rushed through. That might happen. Shoot. So Russia's a big winner on this one.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. has the largest military arsenal in human history. The U.S. has the largest, most powerful military in human history by a factor of 5 or 6, something like that. I think, as I said, China, I think, has 1 or 2 aircraft carriers. We have about 10, don't we? Something like that. Not to mention the nuclear submarines. We have 11 last count. And the Air Force, the Navy. I mean, it's ridiculous. But it's not infinite. It's not infinite. And especially these missile interceptors, that's a relatively new technology. There didn't really exist 30 years ago. I think the Patriots were the first that worked. And they're amazingly expensive, as I said, $1 million plus each interceptor, each one. And it takes, I just saw a video in Tel Aviv. It took 11 interceptors to take down one of the Iranian missiles. So, war of attrition, baby. And I'm telling you, those Persians and those Chinese, they're very, very, very used to very long conflicts and long-term suffering, especially against outside oppressors. It's just true. And I'm with them in this war. I hate communism. I have zero interest in Islamism and Sharia law, none. But in this war, yeah, I'm on their side, of course. Every American should be. They're doing every American a favor. Absolutely. We spend, as I said, tens of billions of dollars per year on those fucking bases and the troops in them. And they've only cost blood and treasure. We've gained what from it? From having those bases all over the Middle East? It's like 20 of them? Tens of thousands of troops stationed there permanently? What? We don't need the oil. Self-sufficient in oil, guys. Remember that? We don't take any oil from the Gulf anymore. None. Zero. None. The only answer, the only reason the United States is doing this is to maintain control over Eurasia, as Zbigniew Brzezinski said we needed to in 1997, as Henry Kissinger said before then, and as Dwight Eisenhower said before then, and as Truman said before then, and as the CIA has said ever since. Yeah, American foreign policy makers who are wedded to the idea of a global American empire, American primacy globally, which is almost all of them. Yeah, they've been calling for a war against Iran since 1979, and they've been calling for control over the area around and in Iran since 1953. And I think that's been nothing but bad. Bad for me, for you, and for all Americans, except for those who work in the defense industry. So, yeah, full solidarity in this war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Hell yeah. And the People's Republic of China, too. Sorry. It's the American position. It's the all-American position.
I don't see how you win by losing.
Oh, I do. Well, winning is retrenching, is it not? Winning is closing those bases and bringing those troops home and having an actual defense. Bring those missile interceptors to the United States. Great. Let's have them here. That's where they belong. That's to defend Americans. What? Yeah. Have them all up and down each coast and along both borders. Sure. Of course. I want a missile interceptor system everywhere. I would like to be defended and strong. Bring the aircraft carriers to America. Have them patrol up and down the coasts. Sure. And all the submarines. Sure. Yeah. Yes. Have a big ass strong army and military and Marines and all of it. Well, not Marines because they're only an offensive force, but yeah, the rest of it, sure. But here to defend me and you and America, which I thought was the point of it. Why are they 5,000 miles from here, killing people most Americans don't even know exist and know nothing about? Bring everybody home, and we will have the most amazing defense in human history, will we not?
Mhm.
We will be impenetrable. We have 2 oceans, right? And then the biggest military that's actually located domestically. No one will be able to touch us.
The thing is,
Ever.
if Iran wins, I don't see how that happens if Iran wins this war.
Why? What are they going to do?
They're going to keep fighting. I don't see America backing down.
Here? They're going to
Yeah.
come to Indiana and California?
No.
Oh, well then I don't give a shit.
I'm saying the United States empire is going to go back. Like, they're going to build those bases and they're going to say, see, we definitely need this.
Well,
And that's, yeah.
Why is that a foregone conclusion?
I don't see America being demoralized and demilitarized by losing.
We haven't lost until now, is my point. We haven't had a U.S. military base destroyed until now.
Mm-hmm.
Has a military base been destroyed? No, not since 1944. Has a U.S. military base abroad been destroyed? And so this will definitely force a debate, and I'm here for that. I've been waiting for this debate my entire life. Mm-hmm. I want a debate. I've never seen it, and I don't know why the anti-war movement hasn't forced this. Why the Al Udeid Air Base should exist. Why the 5th Fleet Base in Bahrain should exist. There's, again, like about 24 major U.S. bases in the Middle East. Every single one of them should be closed. We will save billions of dollars and a lot of lives.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I'm on board with that.
Okay.
I just think,
then join the revolution.
I don't see how that happens with Iran winning. I don't see.
How else does it happen?
I think that if that happens, then we're like, Iran is horrible. They're this awful enemy. Yeah. I think then you still have an adversary in the middle of the Middle East, and American trade is the Strait of Hormuz is closed for Americans. The dollar hegemony is weakened. I don't see a multipolar order in the future. I see America by force doing everything it can to guarantee its dominance. And that's just the dynamics that are at play.
Remember about 5 years ago, and this had been for many years to that point, how much were we talking about North Korea? We were talking about North Korea all the time. We were talking about North Korea more than Russia, China, and Iran combined. Mm-hmm. We were talking about North Korea all the time. Hollywood movies were being made about North Korea. Kim Jong-un became like a meme. North Korea became a meme. And then they got a nuclear weapon. And U.S. policymakers have barely said the words North Korea since then. And there's been zero belligerence toward North Korea since then, not even rhetorically. Since then, when the global South, whatever you want to call them, strap up and fight back and are successful in defending themselves, the United States walks away with its tail between its legs, kind of like in Vietnam since 1973. Gone. U.S. just left because it got destroyed, defeated in the field by people in sandals shooting AK-47s at us. And Vietnam, since 1973, you never hear it mentioned. We just got defeated. We left, never looked back. That's what's going to happen here. Pretty sure.
On the ground, I don't think Iran has the resources to win this war. We'll see. Huge fog of war right now. I don't know. Well, I'm just saying. I don't know anything. I'm just saying this is what I see. This is,
Now, there could be, again, I don't see any evidence of this whatsoever. And I'm even a little bit surprised by this.
Yeah.
It could devolve into a civil war like with Libya.
Mm-hmm.
We took out Gaddafi and destroyed the government with bombs and no boots on the ground, just a bunch of bombing. And then it devolved immediately into a disgusting civil war.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it's still a civil war.
Yeah.
I think Libya
Syria.
is sort of divided into multiple fiefdoms controlled by warlords, I think. And Syria. Yeah, that could happen. And that's what Israel wants, by the way. That's pretty much their strategy. And it's partly the strategy of the US, but
have you seen what the neocons have been saying?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're split. I mean, you're talking about the real neocons or the ex-neocons? Like
I'm talking about John Bolton, which I guess may not be fair to call him a neocon. John Bolton, Ann Applebaum, and Max Boot. I guess Max Boot might be the only.
Yeah, so they're not. Well, Applebaum, I'm not sure about, but Boot and who'd you say? Sorry.
Bolton.
John Bolton are not neocons, and Bolton's actually laid this out, and Bolton is actually a pretty serious intellectual.
Yeah.
He's been very clear, and he's sort of laid out exactly how he's not a neocon, which is this, and this very similar to Trump, and this is why Trump hired him. John McCain was a part of this too. It's a strand or a strain in American foreign policy thinking. Sort of began late Cold War, but really took hold after the Cold War, which is that, we will fucking kill anybody who gets in our way or disrespects us or kills some servicemen, or sure, we'll go hard. That's John McCain. But we don't want to keep troops in places permanently. We don't want colonization. We don't want occupation. We don't want endless wars. We don't want Iraq, Afghanistan necessarily. We don't want that. We want to go and kill our enemies and then leave, which is kind of an elaboration on the Powell-Weinberger doctrine under Reagan. It's the Reagan doctrine. So there's that. So there's those. The neocons have kind of given up on that. I've been following Commentary very closely recently, and Commentary was very much the hub of neoconservative thinking. Editor was Norman Podhoretz. The current editor is John Podhoretz, his son, and it's still like that's where the neocons really come together and talk it out. They're into this. They're definitely into the war on Iran, but they're not all into regime change necessarily. They're a little bit skittish about this. They're a bit hesitant about it. Bill Kristol's against it generally. There's some very interesting schism, and I'm curious. No one has written about this. I'm thinking I might do it. There's been some kind of split among the neocons between the Kristols and the Podhoretzes. They have very different politics now. And that needs to be examined. No one's talking about this. So, Kristol's kind of thrown himself in with kind of the centrist Democrat
Kristol
establishment.
Yeah.
The Bulwark, maybe 2/3 of the people who work at the Bulwark are Democrats, but, centrist, pro-establishment, certainly generally pro-empire, uncritical of the empire. But on this, no, they're not into it. They are not into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Kristol, I think he's just become partisan against Trump and just has animus against Trump at this point. I don't know.
It's funny
why he's wanted regime change in Iran forever. And now he's getting it.
No,
but
I think the neocons are genuinely chastened about Iraq and Afghanistan. They still talk some game about it, but
they don't. Okay. Well,
you can hear it in them.
I've never.
They're different now.
When Bill Kristol talked to Dick Cheney, he never brought up Iraq, like part 2. Like had this long conversation about all their good times together and everything that they worked on, and completely skipped over Iraq. So yeah, maybe they're just admitting defeat somehow. But what I was saying with Applebaum, Bolton, and Max Boot is that they don't see a plan. They're opposed to it, even though they've been for regime change in Iran forever. They don't see the NGO infrastructure to nation build again. They don't see the boots on the ground necessary to take out Iran. They think that to beat this, you need like a massive boots on the ground army to actually take this out. And they don't see a support for a proxy. Right. They don't see the support for the Shah.
Right. They don't see it as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why they're not into it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is it seems like Trump is trying a different strategy than the pre-approved have your replacement guy in place, massive boots on the ground, massive NGO nation building infrastructure.
Right. Yeah, they're into direct colonialism, and Trump is into indirect, I would call it extortionate colonialism. You will do what we tell you, or we'll bomb you and kill your leader.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you will do what we tell you, otherwise we will send 500,000 soldiers into your country.
Mm-hmm. But
that's the difference.
Yeah, this is an approach that is new. It is against a long-term entrenchment, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Again, we'll see how this plays out. I think the United States is way ahead right now on this. And
how so?
I could be wrong.
Metrics? What metrics? Like, what are you
on killing their leadership, on sinking the Navy, on getting through their missile defense systems? I think it's a big show of force that the United States has just demonstrated, and that it's very possible that this is won overwhelmingly within a month or two, or even sooner. That's what I hope for. I hope that this is, I think both of us want this war to end as fast as possible, and for the United States to retreat from the region. I just think that...
Do you remember shock and awe?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. I know this could be that. Yeah.
And Iraq.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. More firepower, more killing.
Yeah.
More death, and the killing of the leader in those countries. And it resulted in what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 20 years.
20 years of quagmire and loss.
Yeah.
And a defeat. Mm-hmm. A humiliating defeat.
The thing is,
just like Vietnam.
I know. Trump is, I'm saying, Hegseth and Trump are promising that that's not what's going to happen. They're saying that we've learned from this. They are saying that we have rules of engagement to make sure that doesn't happen. They are not 100% disclosing their plan. They're not taking anything off the table, but they're pushing all their credibility on this. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me say something on behalf of the Trump administration, and this is heartfelt. Pete Hegseth looks awesome in those suits. Damn. With the little American flag, what's it called? Pocket square, just poking out 1/4 of an inch. Damn, man. I want those suits. Dude looks good. Okay. We got to go.
Yeah.
I got to go. Oh, tomorrow.
Yeah.
At the Academy.
Office hours.
At Unregistered Academy tomorrow, I'm having office hours. First office hours at the Academy. For, of course, Academy subscribers only. Do you have the URL?
Yeah, just straight up unregisteredacademy.substack.com.
Here it is. So yeah, you'll see that on the front page. It'll be tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. And you can ask, talk about anything, courses, current events, anything you want the Academy to do. I'm open. For members only, tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern. Become a member, and hopefully I will see you there.
Cool. After show? immediately.
And the after show.
Yeah,
More
which is the other Substack.
That's right. I got 2 Substack, only 2.
Yeah.
Some people get confused. I've only got 2. So Thaddeus Russell Substack, yeah, to join the after show after Unreported, just be a member there. And the URL again is on that site as well. So everybody should subscribe to both. And hope to see people at the after show tonight, right now, and at the office hours tomorrow at the Academy. All right, man.
Dope. Yeah.
Peace.
Peace.